something going out there, there are ambulances at the Orlando Sports Stadium.
Of course, they don't want to leave anybody go down there, Steve, because it's just adding to the confusion. Channel 6 is down there with their wagon. They let them through, and the Sentinel was let in. But nobody else is being permitted, including parents of children and teenagers who are there. There's many, many parents out here along Highway 50 that are standing very worried about their children who are attending, and this isn't helping either.
A warning to all parents that might be listening now, please stay where you are. The Highway Patrol requested to this radio station that no one enter the area, and our eyewitness on the scene says no one's being let in. Herndon Ambulance just reported by radio that they were carrying at this time only one injury. It was serious, but evidently the injuries aren't stacking up as to what people said they were, but there's a disturbance of some kind, so if the people would stay out of the area, that would be the number one help at this point.
Well, they're going to help themselves, Steve, if they do stay away. If they don't, there's not going to be any more concerts.
Well, whether there's any more concerts or not is a little consequence at this time.
This is true.
Steve, Jim Hayes of the Orlando Sports Stadium is on the telephone, and he wants to make a statement. Would you put him on, please?
What line is he on now?
You can talk to him right on your microphone. You talk, and he'll answer you.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Hello?
Tell the people, and if you're on the air, is not to alarm the people, and mothers and fathers of people that are here, because there's the kids are inside enjoying the show, and the problem we have was on the outside is when a bunch of kids who apparently don't believe in paying to see a show, or an artist like we had here tonight, think they ought to get in for nothing, and so we called some extra help from police to prevent any problems from occurring, and so that's when the bulletin went out. And of course, when you do a rock show, you call for extra police immediately. It's a riot. That's the people that pick up this sort of thing, and it's all of a sudden a riot. But I just want to assure the people that the kids, approximately 4,000 kids inside, enjoyed the show, and in fact, it's still going on right now. And John Sebastian was singing right at this minute. I can hear him outside the door right now. And the only problem we had was the problem was outside.
You going to answer him, Steve?
Pardon me?
Yeah, I'm here right now. Well, as long as the people inside are all right, that's nice to hear. But what advice do you have for the parents? What's going to happen now to the kids inside when it's over? Where are they going to go?
Some of the kids are leaving, and as they do periodically in these shows. And I just talked to one of my men right now that came in, and he says it's quieted down outside. So when the show's over, the kids will leave like they normally do. And barring any more, incidents, well, I think it'll be okay.
Well, we understand right now that the Florida Highway Patrol and law enforcement agencies are permitting no parents to go into the area to pick up their children. What do you know about this?
See, what they want to do is they want to let these kids who are in the parking lot, and they get them, clear the area first. You can't see the situation we have here with the one road coming in, one main road coming in. It's difficult to handle the traffic out if you got all these people coming out here, the people can't get out that want to leave. And of course the kids know that the kids that can see that there's some difficulty probably want to save their parents any anxiety and are beginning to leave, So you've got a terrific traffic problem when when you've got people coming and going in our situation the way it is here.
Pat, could you take over for a moment? We're getting us some information off the radio.
I'll do it, thank you. Okay, Jim, thank you for talking to us there, old buddy.
Okay, Pat.
We'll catch you later.
All
right, also standing by at the Orlando Sports Stadium is WLOF's afternoon personality, Bill Barber. And Bill just spoke with me a few moments ago and said that he was right in the middle of whatever it was happened. Bill, what's going on?
Well, it began a little while ago. I walked out back to get some air, and these dudes were trying to tear down a fence and either let some people in or get out. And I'm not sure exactly what was happening, but all of a sudden we could hear glass smashing and cars, the sound of a rock hitting a car occasionally. It came to be a sheriff's car, or two sheriff's cars actually, were being objects thrown at them on the far side of the sports stadium.
Now this, of course,
from within the sports stadium grounds. And this, of course, agitated them. They were backing their cars way off to a distance. And then I called these two fellas over that I had seen, and I asked them, I said, why don't you not do this? Why don't you realize everything at stake? And they said, oh, they hit my hands with a club. They hit my hands with a club. And one of them did have what looked to be a racked-up hand because, evidently he had put himself in a position to get hit to begin with.
Well, let me ask you, Bill, were you inside after this alleged riot started?
Yes, I was. I was trying. As a matter of fact, they locked the gate as I was coming to the gate. I was going to go home because it was getting a little sticky around the outside.
Yeah, well, could you give me an idea of the type and the level of the activity going on inside the stadium where ostensibly those who paid to get in were located at the time of the outbreak?
Fine, there are no worries whatsoever. They're not even aware anything's going on. The people that paid to get in and the people who are interested in the show aren't even aware anything's going on.
Now, we were told by Mr. Jim Hayes that some of the people inside the stadium were getting uneasy and had perhaps started to leave.
Well, now, these are the people that continuously walk around the outside, that crowd, that walk around looking for things and wondering what's going on, and they are the ones that are trying to get away so desperately. But the average person, the majority by far, is still inside unaware that anything is going on.
I see.
And the people in trouble are the people who put themselves, I would say, in a position to be in trouble.
Well, how many ambulances have you seen arrive there at the stadium so far, Bill?
I think we saw 3 plus the Florida Hospital helicopter. Circling overhead.
From your vantage point, could you see enough to make any estimate on possible injuries to the law enforcement agencies and perhaps the patrons of the stadium?
No, I saw a few broken bottles and, as I said, the damage to the police cars. But this is all I saw. I didn't actually see any outright, other violence than that.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I meant to mention to you, but I can't think of it. Maury Eisman is out there trying to get everything in control along the side of the fence.
Right. Of course, Maury is one of the, I guess you could call him promoters. He's brought a lot of talent to the area, so he's pretty much in charge of what's going on there as far as the talent is concerned.
Right.
So you're telling me then that those inside of the stadium are not participating in the riot and are not in any position to get injured or arrested?
None at all. Everything is fine. There's no sheriff's department or any officials really inside. They're not interested in the people inside. I think they're grateful for the people that are in there because the hassle is in the parking lot area. I saw roughly 6 people, young boys, probably 18, average age, being taken to the cars, to the sheriff's cars.
Well, did you see any actual physical battle taking place between law enforcement people and patrons? Was there indeed a riot or fights between the police and the patrons going on?
It was on the side of the stadium that I couldn't get to. I saw roughly, I would say, 25 troopers, or sheriff's department men, all armed. They had on riot gear. They did have the riot gear. I saw what appeared to be a tear gas belt. Also, all had billy clubs, and they ran in military formation to the area, and then a few came back with the people that, the half a dozen I told you about. But as far as anything to worry about, there is no such.
I see.
Inside the stadium.
That would be a matter of opinion, I would say.
I mean inside the stadium. I'm not saying, all's cool.
Oh,
and you cannot get in, by the way. Don't try to pick up your, your kids if they're at the stadium now, because you can't get in. You have to park along 50, and the line is getting long, and there's quite a few people there at the intersection.
So it's going to be a long night at the sports stadium.
It could be. Here comes hold on a second. I think here comes an ambulance now.
Tell me what happens. Tell me what you see there, Bill.
And that's our first one I've seen going to the hospital.
What's happening?
I'm not sure. They just went by. I don't know. Evidently, they didn't need the helicopter that we saw because it never did land. It was still hovering overhead when we left.
Now, where are you speaking from, Bill?
I'm about eighth of a mile down the road at a payphone. Right.
Excuse me, Pat.
Yes, go ahead.
When you can get it in, we have a report from a woman who called our news line. Tim Sawyer had her call us, who is a reporter for the Lakeland Ledger. She asked not to be identified, but she's given us some interesting information. We can go ahead and air that now.
Okay, roll that report then, Steve.
Police going in. They're not allowing anyone into the area, and they're asking people not to go there. A lot of ambulances have gone in, and only 1 or 2 have gone out, I'd say. And the police, they are not telling you what's going on. However, I understand that some kids fighting outside, and there have been some injuries. And also, don't come into the area because there's a wreck on 50 before you get to the sports stadium.
What about injuries? Have any young people been injured? Can you give me any details on injuries?
I don't know. They didn't let me in.
Right now, what's the traffic situation on 50?
The traffic situation is a gigantic mess. You have a wreck at State Road 15 and Highway 50, and the Herndon ambulance helicopter has just stopped. 436, excuse me, and 50. And both traffic blocked in all directions. Traffic is blocked in all directions.
So there you have it, Pat. That's a report from a woman who identifies herself as a reporter for the Lakeland Ledger in Lakeland, and she says that the helicopter is now on the scene of an accident at State Road 436 and 50, and lanes are blocked in both directions. The accident, no doubt, a result of people swarming out to the area. Once again, please don't go in the area of the sports stadium or East 50 or Highway 50 because it is blocked off.
Steve, I have Bill Barber, who is located about 1/8 of a mile from the stadium. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask him?
Just if you can give us more information on, we're trying to find out now what the situation is at this moment outside the sports stadium. Is the show going on, and have there been serious injuries, Bill?
The show is going on. Everything is planned, and they're into it well. Like I said, the people inside, most of them aren't even aware anything's going on. The hassle is all outside the fence. It's outside in a very small minority of people who, one report said, didn't have enough money to get in, and they were going to tear their way in and this sort of thing. And there goes just a second. We're having something else go on. Another ambulance, another Herndon just went by. And I couldn't tell how many were in it. Okay, so it all adds up to if you came out with money and got in and paid, chances are you're inside now and everything's cool. But if you're outside and you're restless and you're in that crowd, well, you're probably there weren't over probably 3 dozen involved outside.
Pat? Yeah. We just had a report roll on the Associated Press. This is what the AP says. Squads of police swarmed into the Orlando Sports Stadium tonight to calm a disturbance by several thousand young rock music fans. An Orange County Sheriff's Department spokesman said he received a call for assistance from 2 officers at the scene of the disturbance. And in the spokesman's words, we sent in everything that could roll, let's say the whole department. Cause or extent of the trouble has not been determined. No arrests or injuries have been reported. Officers say the trouble involved police and youths attending a concert. That was a report from the wires of Associated Press, which, of course, is a little bit behind. But it's starting to shape up now, though. We're getting an idea of what's going on out there at the sports stadium.
Okay, Steve, you go ahead and pick up some more details, and I'll check back with Bill Barber, who is on the scene, and we'll find out if he can see anything additional.
Okay, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay, we have some people coming up here, and I'll find out if they've been down there.
Hey, Bill, grab one of them and ask him. Grab one of them and interview him if you can.
Bobby, were you down there? Yeah. Okay, keep it clean and talk to Pat today. Keep it clean. Well, we'll go ahead on the phone.
Okay, well, I don't really know how it started or anything, but all I know is, they just started throwing rocks up there at the front of the sports stadium, and then the pigs started throwing them back and everything.
Okay, now hold on. Now, let's start back at the beginning. Where were you when you first noticed something was going on?
Well, I was standing out front, waiting to get in. I wasn't, quite ready to go in, I had my money and everything.
Yeah.
And so it started raining. I got up under the thing, and then went on, and then...
Now, we're live on the radio now. You're live on WLOF. Go ahead.
And so it went on, and then the police, started running around chasing everybody with their sticks and everything. And then they got back over in front of the sports stadium. And then they started throwing rocks back and everything. And
Yes, remember? Now by Pat?
Yeah.
Now by everybody, he's referring to the everybody outside that was in this particular crowd that was trying to get in without admission or whatever the case was.
Right.
Pat?
Yes, sir.
I just want to interrupt. Herndon Ambulance has received a call for an emergency ambulance to the south side of the sports stadium, so we don't know what's happened, but they've got somebody hurt over there, and they say it's serious. There's an ambulance en route now to the south parking lot of the sports stadium. Trouble unknown at this time.
Okay, Steve. Bill, are you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to switch over to another line here and get another eyewitness report. Will you kindly stand by, and perhaps if you can get somebody that can give us an unbiased account of this thing, stand by and I'll be back with you in a moment.
All right.
Hello, WLOF. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
You do not wish to be identified?
No, I don't.
Okay. Were you at the stadium?
Yes, I was.
Where were you whenever you first noticed that some kind of disturbance was happening?
We were on 15A in Colonial.
You were on 15A in Colonial?
Yeah, on the corner.
Uh-huh. What happened?
Well, we were going to go across to the sports stadium.
This was before the show?
No, it was around 8:30, quarter till 9. Closer to 9 o'clock. It was about 9 o'clock.
Right.
And all we could see were sirens and, police cars coming.
Uh-huh.
We counted 10 within 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Cars, and then 2 ambulances.
Where are you calling from now, love?
My house.
Uh-huh. While you were there, did you see any of the disturbance actually taking place?
Yeah, I did.
What happened?
I asked, to find out. I was outside of my car at the back entrance of the sports stadium where most of this was going on. And there were policemen and, the kids were throwing rocks, bottles at the cops. The cops were throwing them back.
Now, you saw rocks and bottles being thrown with your own eyes?
You better believe it.
Uh-huh. Did you see anybody hit?
Yeah.
How many would you say were hit bad enough to require attention?
A lot.
How many is a lot? 1 or a dozen or 50 or 100?
I saw at least 6.
Uh-huh.
I saw, just a few minutes ago you were on the radio. It wasn't long ago. And this is the reason I'm calling this, because I heard you. And you said you didn't know whether to classify it as a riot or a confusion.
Uh-huh.
And it's definitely no confusion.
I see. Well, thank you very much for your call, and we thank you again.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Now, whenever, of course, I think you should point out that whenever you talk to passersby, whenever you talk to people who casually observe a condition such as this, you're going to get all kinds of verbiage. You're going to get riots, you're going to get disturbances, you're going to get all kinds of things. So what we should do is depend upon factual information, and that, of course, is usually information from the local authorities, such as the police, the stadium personnel, and people who have no vested interest in either side of the story. So,
excuse me, Pat?
Yes, sir.
Go to line 4. Pick up line 4, please.
Okay, I'm on line 4.
Ma'am, you're on the air. You say they're using tear gas at this time?
Yes, sir. Well, I don't know. I'm completely away from the stadium now, but I was sitting right up front, and there is nobody in that stadium now because it's full of that stupid tear gas. Everybody's out of it.
Are you sure that it's tear gas in there?
So, man, my eyes are running like anything.
Are you sure it's tear gas they're using in there, ma'am?
Yes, sir, it sure is.
Yeah, Steve, you can't get on the line. Just go ahead and talk to her. She can hear you.
Okay, I'm back with you now. We're having a little technical difficulty there. What's the situation? Where are all the people going, ma'am?
Well, I don't know, but everybody's splitting.
It was a smoke generator. They filled the whole damn stadium up.
Yeah, and they have dogs out there, too.
What about injuries? Have you seen anyone hurt?
I saw one guy laying down, and I don't know if he was flipped out or not, but he was just laying there, and they carried another one away, and there was another guy laying there bleeding real bad.
Pat, her and an ambulance just left the sports stadium with one emergency patient, and they requested some aid at the Florida hospital when they got there, so they must have somebody that was hurt pretty bad.
Steve, I'm having kind of a funny reaction because I'm getting, every one of these eyewitnesses that I've talked to, I seem to be getting a different story, and some of them quite obviously are excited. So
let's take time out and tell the audience that our reports are being based on eyewitness accounts, and we can only go so far as to vouch for the reliability. So take it with a grain of salt. We're doing the best we can.
There you go.
And we're trying to get the information that comes in, but some of the people are excited and don't know how to judge an emergency situation. But we're hoping that they're sincere in what they tell us.
Uh-huh. Okay, Steve. Well, I'm going to see if I can recontact Bill Barber at the stadium there. Wait till he calls back in. I've lost him temporarily. So whenever you get a report to bring us up to date on this, just break onto the line and I'll take it.
Will do.
Okay, let's see if we have somebody on that line. Okay, so we're going to clear that line. We're going to clear our hotline here and wait for Bill Barber to call us back. I will briefly recap what we have been told by sources that we believe are reliable at the Orlando Sports Stadium. I speak of Jim Hayes, the manager, Priscilla, his secretary, and Bill Barber, one of our afternoon disc jockeys, and one of our sales staff, who is covering the stadium activity for us. Here's what it appears has happened. The show was proceeding as normal. In other words, those bearing tickets arrived at the stadium and were permitted admittance. Those who did not have tickets purchased their tickets at the door and were admitted. Now, whenever you have concerts of this nature at practically any place, you're going to have a certain number of people who come there without money and without tickets. And sometimes these are what ordinarily people would term bad elements. Now, sometimes they get highly upset, and sometimes they take the law into their own hands, and that appears to be what happened tonight at the Orlando Sports Stadium. Several people became upset when the police would not admit them, and it appears that they started throwing rocks and bottles, and we have a couple of injuries there. According to all the reports that we have gotten, all of the reliable reports that we have gotten indicate that those inside the stadium were not directly participating in the disturbance, and more than likely got through it all without injury. I've just been signaled to pick up line number 1, so I'm going to see who's on the telephone line at this time. Hello, Pat O'Day, you're on the air.
Okay, I live about a mile and a quarter from the sports stadium, and I was sitting there with my date watching TV.
Now, when was this, sir?
This was about 9:15, and we saw police cars coming by with their sirens and their lights.
Yeah.
About 6 of them, I guess, at first. And, you know, we said, well, maybe something's going on, you know, so I said, we'll go down to the sports stadium and see what's happening. The first time we went by, I guess now about this time it was about 25 minutes till 10, and we went by, and people were walking away from the stadium, and there was a usual crowd of kids hanging around outside. I'd say maybe a couple hundred kids in different groups, and all we could see, any violence at all we could see, were some police in front of the stadium, in some of them in riot gear, a couple of them in raincoats, throwing rocks out to the parking lots. And we heard one policeman say, get that Volkswagen. I don't know if there were rocks coming back. I didn't notice any.
Did you see any direct physical confrontation between the police and any of those patrons outside, such as fighting and roughing each other up?
No, not at this time. We simply saw rocks being thrown by the police. I saw none being thrown by young people. Perhaps there were.
Are you in a vantage point now where you could have observed the going and coming of the official vehicles?
I was right in front of the stadium when I saw the rocks being thrown. From my apartment, yes, I could see official vehicles going by.
Well,
yes.
What is the scene there now, sir?
I don't know what's going on there right now. I left, and then I came back. And when I came back, I didn't go by the stadium. I didn't feel that I'd do anything with getting away if I went back to it again.
So how would you, as a casual observer, how would you characterize what has happened there this evening? It is being called a riot by some people. It's being called a disturbance by others. And it's been being called a normal police action by others. How would you characterize it?
Well, I certainly wouldn't characterize it as normal police action. I hate to say whose fault it is, but I saw no disturbance by the young people when I was there. There are people hanging outside asking for money. They never had been run off violently before. Now, if this was a police business, a reason for the police being there, fine. I don't think it was necessary to have the dogs out there. When I went by the second time, there had been somebody bitten by a dog. There had been somebody bitten over the head. Now, I mean, I don't know if that's necessary or not to get people away if they want to get inside.
There you go.
Normal police action, no. Disturbance, definitely. Who caused it? I couldn't say.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, Steve Rutledge is back in the WLOF newsroom, and I wonder if you're listening, Steve, do you have anything late to add to what we've said so far? Perhaps Steve is on the telephone.
We're here now, Pat. What do you?
I'm sorry. I thought that you might have some late information for us, sir.
Not at this point. There's still emergency vehicles all over the area, and we're working on a report right now.
Okay, Steve. Well, there you have it. From what we have been able to determine, there was a disturbance, and perhaps it could rightly be called a riot, although perhaps a small one from what we've been able to determine, outside the Orlando Sports Stadium this evening. This occurred approximately halfway, as I can recall it, through the concert. Yeah, it does appear that those... who's on line 2, Tom?
There's a guy who was inside the concert, inside the stadium, was there. He and his wife were there, and he's got some eyewitness accounts as to how some of this started, and they stopped the concert and everything else.
Okay, you go in PR2 and talk to him on the telephone and put your feed key in the control room position, and I'll put you on the air, and you can talk to him. But anyway, as it appears to me, there was a small riot outside the stadium, and we have reason to believe that those inside, those who had paid, were not, and perhaps at this time are not, in any danger. It was only those outside who were, those people outside who were upset at not being able to gain free admittance were, shall we say, upset and engaged in the disturbance. Now then, I'm going to attempt to bring Tom Sherwood on the telephone. Tom, are you in there? Okay, I'm trying to bring in Tom Sherwood on the...
Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, can you hear Mike? Say something, Mike. Yeah, Mike, you want to identify yourself?
I just come from the sports stadium. I was inside. I took and bought tickets in advance. We got there at 7:30, and it was there before the concert even started. When Edgar Winters came on, everything was okay. He went through okay. And then at the intermission, that's when the trouble started.
What do you mean by trouble?
Well, I don't know exactly why the police were called. But first thing I saw, I was up at the very top, because I think sound does that way. And in the far back, on the left-hand side, I heard a lot of people, like, screaming and stuff like that, and running, you know. And what they were doing, I don't know why they were called, but I just saw, I couldn't see the police. I could see, like, girls and guys throwing stuff at the police, you know. And I think that they kind of started it, really, you know. But I don't know why they were called to begin with.
Well, now, let me ask you this, Mike. I've gotten reports from a couple of people here who claim that there was tear gas inside the stadium. Is that true? Did you see any tear gas?
There sure was. Yeah.
There was tear gas in there?
See, it went on a long time before they did that, though. Because the kids just kind of kept teasing them, you know, like a mad dog or something.
Well, how did this disturbance happen to come inside the stadium? Do you have any information in that regard?
Well, all I saw was just all the police were outside the gate, and they started throwing rocks at the police, and then the police came in. And at first they didn't do nothing with tear gas, but then all of a sudden they came in with, I don't know how many tear gas things, there's a bunch of them, you know. And I thought they were just going to, there's only one side there was any commotion, you know, everybody else was listening to the concert.
Right.
Which I would say the majority was.
Okay, Mike, thank you for calling.
Okay.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, there you have Tom Sherwood talking with one of the eyewitnesses at the stadium. And now on line number 7, I think, is Bill Barber. Bill, can you hear me there, sir?
Right.
Well, what's happening?
Okay, now about the tear gas. When I was there roughly 15 minutes ago, there was no tear gas being used. I saw something which could have been a tear gas belt, the cartridge holder for the tear gas cartridges. But none was being used at the time. They possibly could now. And I've seen 3 more ambulances going. They have their gear on. They're in a hurry to get back down there, and 2 more have come by. Come again? Okay, right. So anyway, we're just waiting here. I've gone up the road now about 3/4 of a mile. If you are on Highway 50 or Cimarron Boulevard, I would advise getting off, take an alternate route through that intersection of 436 and Highway 50 here, because there's a bad accident there and it takes forever to get through. And once that traffic gets out from the Orlando Sports Stadium, you won't be able to get through unless they do something fantastic.
Where's that accident again, Bill, and what's the nature of it?
Cimarron Boulevard and Highway 50. It should be avoided at all costs. Just a moment. Here comes another ambulance. That's right. That's the 4th one now going back to the sports stadium since I left roughly 15 minutes ago. So there must be something going on now that wasn't when I was there. So your best bet would probably be get an eyewitness report from someone who's there now, if you could possibly call back. But that accident is on the corner of Cimarron, or the intersection of Cimarron, which I believe is 436, and Highway 50, and it's botching up traffic quite badly.
Okay, Bill, do you want to go and see if you can go up to the stadium there and see what you can see and give us a call back?
They won't let me back in. No one can get in. There's a crowd, a literal crowd of people in cars and out of cars around that intersection where you turn to go to the Orlando Sports Stadium off of 50. You couldn't work your way through the crowd now. There are law officers out there. No one goes in. No one goes in. Only people can get out.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you, Bill. You can hang up now and check around and see if you can find out some solid information and give me a call back on the hotline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Pat?
Yes, sir.
No more information from the law enforcement agencies. The Orange County Sheriff's Department is not even talking to anyone, and at this point the Florida Highway Patrol has taken the same stand. Earlier they were giving us information, so either means they're tired of talking on their telephones or they're too tied down to say anything to anyone. But
well, I imagine they've gotten their share of calls this evening, Steve.
Probably so. Like I say, at this point we've got no information, more information from the law enforcement agencies, and from that end it stands as it was earlier.
Okay, well, Steve, we have some eyewitnesses in the studio now, and we're going to turn the microphone over to Tom Sherwood and get an interview, okay?
Fine.
We'll check back with you in a moment.
We'll be standing by.
Okay, now here's Tom Sherwood.
All right, what is your name?
Donna Anderson.
And you told me that you saw how this thing developed and possibly by who that is, the type of people and so on.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about it?
We were inside the stadium, and we didn't care for the show too much because there were a lot of people. There was nobody inside. So we decided we were going to leave, and we went out to the parking lot where our car was. And when we got out to the parking lot, we were standing there talking to a friend we saw, and all of a sudden I saw a rock thrown. And it hit the window where the ticket office is and broke it. They were breaking windows. And
how many people were engaged in that activity, throwing rocks? How many people were doing that?
I guess there must have been about 25, I guess. There were a lot of kids out in the parking lot. We were just standing around watching.
Did you see anyone actually get hurt?
I saw an officer get hurt and a couple of kids out in the parking lot that got hit by a rock that the officers were throwing.
How about the kids? What happened to them?
Well, most of them ducked, but one got hit in the arm and one ducked behind the cars. There were windshields breaking all over that, and I saw one kid get splattered with the glass.
Tom?
You gave me a reason out there as to why these people wanted to get in free to the concert. Would you tell us that now?
Well, they broke down the gate at the Led Zeppelin show because I was out there when it happened. I bought my ticket, and if I waited around, I could have gotten in for nothing, but they let about 200, 300 people get in for nothing. And just because they let them in free at Led Zeppelin, they figured they could get in. And I don't think they should have. It was wrong. And
they wanted to get in free?
Yeah, they wanted to get in for nothing.
Why?
Because they got in for nothing for Led Zeppelin. Because they got enough money out of Led Zeppelin, they were letting everybody in for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Tom? Do you have anyone else back there that was at the stadium when this broke?
Okay, here's a young man who was here. Would you identify yourself?
Ernie Casano, and I was outside the whole time, and the whole crowd of people wanted to gate crash, so the whole crowd was throwing rocks practically. There was a few main people that were doing the most of it, and the rest were getting involved by standing around.
Now, you mentioned to me outside that these are possibly out-of-towners. Is that right?
Well, there's a lot of people from out of town that come there to the shows. But see, for the prices they charged for Edgar Winters was ridiculous, and the people were they should have been only 3 in advance and 4 at the door, not 5 at the door. The outrageous prices were bad. A lot of people... Well, they shouldn't have let the people in at Led Zeppelin, or they were just asking for more trouble when they did let the people in at Led Zeppelin.
Well, did this develop fairly rapidly once it started? It just like mushroom right on up, or what?
For a while, the police were, the cops, they were staying back, and they were just running up to the people, and then they started throwing rocks and stuff. Finally, the police started coming out into the parking lot and getting the people that we were standing by their cars and stuff, waiting for their friends to get out to take them home, like me. I was standing out there, and the police officer told me to get out, and I had to find a different way home. I don't know. These friends of mine that I've just met, probably give me a lift home.
Now, you also mentioned something about a helicopter other than the Herndon ambulance helicopter.
They had that out there. They weren't trying to land. They were out there. They had a spotlight off that helicopter, and every time the people would go in a crowd, they would shine the light down on the people so the cops could see where they were to run after them.
Was this a police helicopter? Was it identified or marked as such?
You couldn't tell. It was pretty dark, but
this is WLOF in Orlando, Florida.
And shining down. But I was almost thrown on the ground by an officer, and I was surprised. I was waiting for my friends to get out of the show so I could go home. Now I have to find either hitchhike home or something else.
Where do you live?
In Kissimmee.
It's a long walk.
And they must have an idea. I don't know what they expect people to do anyway, where to go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Has anybody said anything about the tear gas?
We saw something coming out, but we don't know what it was. This big white stuff we left in a hurry.
Yeah, I'll talk about that and then I'll do a recap, okay?
Okay. Get back on the circuit here because you're off your feet, circuit.
I don't think it was Florida Hospital helicopter. Was because when they started rushing all the crowds and they started chasing us all the way down the road, we kept walking and running.
Okay, well, thank you very much, darling. At this time, we've gone pretty far into this thing. We've talked to a lot of people. We've listened to a lot of radio police calls. We've gotten telephone calls, and it's beginning to become rather clear, at least relatively speaking, what has happened. Steve Rutledge is in the newsroom. Steve, where do we begin?
Well, we start with me eating dinner on Highway 50 tonight and seeing about 4 ambulances go by and about 10 police cars. That's a good start, but then we find out that there's a disturbance at the Orlando Sports Stadium, and no one seems to know exactly what's happening out there, but reports start to filter into the news bureau here and other news agencies that there's a riot, in their words, and that there are rocks and bottles being thrown. It becomes evident that there was a disturbance. What apparently happened from our reports, and this has been verified through other sources, that some people who could not get inside to see the show. Stand by, Pat.
Okay, he was going to say that some of the people who had showed up there trying to get in to see the show with no money and no tickets, more than likely, became upset, perhaps at the police, perhaps at the sports stadium, perhaps just frustrated, and began manhandling the landscape, throwing rocks, bottles, etc., and so on. This is a phenomenon that has been observed at many of these rock concerts all across the nation and around the world. You always have the element of those who show up with no money and no tickets and insist on being admitted free. And sometimes when they are turned down, they get violent. And apparently that's what happened at the Orlando Sports Stadium tonight.
Pat, we're back on the air.
Okay.
We were listening to some calls from Herndon Ambulance, who we've been depending on a lot this evening. But where I left off, it appeared there was a disturbance, though, and the people who couldn't get in, there was obviously a disturbance outside. Witnesses said that the show went on. Now, I have talked to 3 different people who said that as the disturbance was going on outside, the show went on as normal until some police officers, this is unverified, but I've had several reports, came into the arena where the show was going on and music was going on and fired tear gas. We've had 3 different reports of tear gas being used, and then the people evidently scattered all along the way. There were some injuries. I've got a call on the news line, Pat. Take over until I can get back to you.
Well, I'll try to. Well, as Steve was going to say there, we did have reports that the disturbance was confined to the outside, and we have received many indications that those inside the building did not participate in any of the rioting, and therefore we have reason to believe that if you have perhaps a child or a friend at the stadium, if they were inside, if you feel that they had money enough to get in and had a ticket, then there is not too much of a reason why you should worry. All of the reports that we have had seem to confirm at least one thing, and that is that there was considerable rock and bottle throwing, and there were some injuries. One, we believe, to the eye of a policeman, and a policeman allegedly was beaten. So that pretty much is the story. Of course, with regard to the actual number of casualties, the types of injuries, we're going to have to wait until perhaps tomorrow until we can get a report from the hospitals. And I think it would be fair to point out at this time that after a happening of this nature in which you have 2 factions, specifically the conservative community and the police department, and the liberal swinging young people, you're going to get 2 sides to the story. And it is only after you completely analyze all of the facts available from substantial sources can you formulate a good idea of precisely what happened. But it does appear that some people outside the stadium became upset at not being admitted free and caused a minor riot. And Steve Rutledge is back in the newsroom right now. He's perhaps talking with some of the law enforcement officials, and later on in the evening we will have some substantial information. I say substantial because it is always recommendable to wait until you can hear solid facts before you form any absolute opinion as to what has happened. Yeah, we have had dependable eyewitness reports from the stadium stating that there have been dozens of ambulances, dozens of police cars, and various other emergency vehicles out there. We do know that there has been a wreck on 436 and Highway 50, and the traffic out there is absolutely terrible. We have even had reports of serious injuries. And Steve, if you're back there in the news department now, I think that if you can take over the line here, I'll answer a telephone call on line number 3 that has some interesting information for us. Okay, let me, against my better judgment now, I'm going to go on line number 3, and I'm going to inform this gentleman that he is on the air. Sir, what is your name?
Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright?
Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, yes.
And what is your first name, sir?
Barry Wright.
And
I'm with the Charles Chips Company here in Orlando.
The what?
I'm with the Charles Potato Chip Company here in Orlando.
Uh-huh. And do you work for, you do work for the Potato Chips Company?
I do.
Uh-huh. And what do you have to report?
Well, we were coming back from the, out towards the stadium and looking around, see what's going on. And we pulled up on the accident where this little Simca that was hit by a law enforcement car, which...
Sir, are you about to report a traffic fatality?
Well, it's just about the accident of 436 and 50.
Uh-huh. Let me get on the private line here, sir. We don't want to broadcast any information unless we're sure we know what we're talking about. You're not on the air now. Go ahead and tell me what... yes. Steve, are you back there in the newsroom?
Back now. We're trying to establish contact with the Florida Hospital emergency room where most of the injured have been taken at this time to see if we can find out. Stand by.
Okay. We have so many reports coming in here, so many telephones ringing that it's really hard to keep it all coordinated. Yes. Now, you were about to report a fatality. Do you know of anybody that's been killed in that highway accident? Uh-huh. So it has not been verified then. All right, sir. Well, look, thanks for the call, okay? Thank you very much. Oh, boy. Thanks a lot. It's always very bad policy to release eyewitness accounts of wrecks where people are claiming fatalities and that kind of thing because it unduly disturbs. And I'm sure everybody who drives a Simca that's listening to this radio station is going to be worried about that, and I apologize for putting that on the radio. So that's about all we have to say at this time. A minor riot, or perhaps a moderate riot, occurred at the Orlando Sports Stadium this evening. And once again, we reiterate, quite importantly, if you know of someone at the stadium who had a ticket or had money enough to get in, it's only reasonable to believe that they were inside watching the show. And therefore, since all of the reports that we have gotten so far indicate that the disturbance occurred outside, you have no reason to believe or suspect that your friends were involved in the activity. It is reasonable to believe, though, that there will be many, many people getting home quite late tonight due to the monumental traffic jam that exists on practically all of the arteries leading from the Orlando Sports Stadium.
Pat?
Yes, sir.
We just made contact with Florida Hospital Emergency Room, and news black out there saying nothing, allowed to release nothing. I don't know whether they're overworked or whether the law enforcement agency that's coordinating the thing has initiated a blackout for one reason or another, but we're getting no official word from this time on, so we're going to have to depend totally on eyewitness accounts.
Okay, what are you going to do, Steve?
I say we can get no official word at this point from any law enforcement or hospitals on persons injured or what's happening right now. So we're just going to have to depend on eyewitness accounts, and I think the listeners should be aware of this. The law enforcement agencies are tied up, and they can't give us any official information at this point.
Okay, Steve, I'll tell you what what we should do right now. We'll go ahead and do this very brief recap of what we know so far, and then we'll go back to our regular programming, and we'll interrupt the programming from time to time whenever we get factual information. Do you concur in that?
Right. We just had a call. Let me add this from Ron Arnold, and he says he was in there that they did use some kind of gas to clear the stadium. He says now they're clearing the area out and that traffic is moving both ways on Highway 50. It's moving both ways. To all parents that are listening, we have no official word from any law enforcement agency that you can go in there, so you're on your own. But traffic is moving on 50. If you're out there, you'll probably know. But it is tight, of course, around the sports stadium, but from Forsyth Road in that area, there's traffic going both ways.
What do we know about injuries, Steve?
Pat?
Well,
yeah.
Pat, we know that there were some injuries because we heard ambulances state such and take patients to hospitals. We don't know how many, what kind of condition they're in, or what. Most of them were taken to Florida Hospital. They're not saying anything right now. Evidently, some people were injured. It concurs with eyewitness reports who say they did see some people hurt. You couldn't help but have somebody hurt in an incident of this type if